Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be back in New Delhi, and this is my third trip in the last 10 months. And on this occasion, let me begin my press conference by expressing my sincere condolences on behalf of President Bush and the American people for the sad loss that the Indian people have suffered. We extend our deep sympathy to the family and friends of Vice President Kant and to all of the Indian people. I look forward today to my meetings with Prime Minister Vajpayee, Deputy Prime Minister Advani, National Security Advisor Mishra, and last evening I had good discussions with my new counterpart, Minister of External Affairs, Sinha. The Prime Minister's team and I have established a good relationship over the past 18 months that has yielded, in my view, very, very positive results. And as befits our transformed bilateral relationship, it is important that the leadership of India and the United States remain in close and frequent contact. As President Bush and Prime Minister Vajpayee directed us last fall when they met, we have opened a new strategic dialogue to transform our relationship. We are conducting intensive and valuable diplomatic exchanges on issues ranging from Afghanistan to trade. We are working together on counterterrorism issues, on intelligence, on law enforcement, and on science projects. We have deepened our economic dialogue. We agree that there is enormous potential for additional trade between our two sides, potential that we want to now move forward with specific programs to realize. And as the United States looks forward to pressing ahead with India on all of these fronts and more, we'll be doing it in a very intensive way, as reflected in the number of visitors who will be coming to India in the weeks ahead. Deputy Secretary Armitage will return in August. Assistant Secretary John Wolf will be visiting in early September to begin a new strategic framework dialogue with a focus on proliferation efforts. Assistant Secretary Christina Roca will come back in late September to kick off a regional dialogue. Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Mark Grossman will continue our security dialogue. Treasury Secretary O'Neill will be in New Delhi in November, and Undersecretary of Commerce Ken Juster will also visit this fall. And we look forward to welcoming many Indian officials to the United States so it can be truly seen as a two-way street going back and forth. I'm sure that the Prime Minister and I will discuss the tensions that exist between India and Pakistan and to explore what further steps both sides can take to diffuse the tension. I do take note of the fact, however, that the situation has improved considerably over the past month. We have been able, for example, on the U.S. side to return our families who had been temporarily moved back, and we have also been able to change our alert levels or caution levels to a point where we are now hopeful that more American tourists will return to India and more businessmen and women will come and find ways to enhance trade between the United States and India. I'm pleased that the United States was able to play a role with the international community in helping to lower the tension level. Deputy Secretary Armitage's visit last month, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld's visit, my very frequent phone calls to the Minister for External Affairs, as well as the work we did with the other side, President Musharraf in Pakistan, I think has played a useful role in bringing the tension level down. But at the same time, the tension is still there, and there is much more that we need to do. Both armies remain mobilized. The situation remains tense. And so we look to India to take further de-escalatory actions as Pakistan makes good on its pledges to permanently cease support for infiltration. And I look forward to my conversations later today with President Musharraf on the pledges that he has made to the United States and to the international community. We are also looking to the future. It's time to get started on making regional stability permanent. Kashmir is on the international agenda. The United States will extend a helping hand to all sides so that they can achieve a more peaceful, less divisive future. We are looking to both India and Pakistan to take steps that begin to bring peace to the region and to assure a better future for the Kashmiri people. The problems of Kashmir cannot be resolved through violence, but only through a healthy political process and a vibrant dialogue. We welcome India's commitment to hold free and fair elections, and we believe an inclusive election meeting these standards can serve as a first step toward peace and reconciliation. We look forward to concrete steps by India to foster Kashmiri confidence in the election process. Permitting independent observers and freeing political prisoners would be helpful. We also look to all parties to do their part to ensure that the upcoming elections can be held in safety and without interference from those who would like to spoil them, for those who do not wish to see peace and reconciliations. Kashmiris want to run or vote in the elections, and if they do so, they should be allowed to do so without endangering their lives. Elections alone, however, cannot resolve the problems between India and Pakistan, nor can they erase the scars of so many years of strife. Elections can, however, be a first step in a broader process that begins to address Kashmiri grievances and leads India and Pakistan back to dialogue. Only a productive and sustained bilateral dialogue on all issues, including Kashmir, will prevent future crises and will finally bring peace to the region. I would like to thank my Indian hosts for their hospitality and for the constructive discussions I've already had, and I know will continue through the morning. And in the months and years ahead, the United States looks forward to deepening its friendship with a thriving, peaceful, and democratic India. Now I'm prepared for your questions.
Begin with Mr. Guetta.
Mr. Secretary, an Indian spokeswoman said last night that infiltration levels across the line of control have decreased only marginally over the past 6 weeks. I don't believe you referred to that in your opening remarks. How do you assess the situation along the line of control?
I think there has been a reduction in infiltration levels. Whether one would classify it as marginally or not marginally, I can't answer. But it seems clear from the information I have that infiltration is continuing. And I think we must make every effort to end it. President Musharraf has pledged that he would end it, and it would end on a permanent basis, and I look forward to discussing that in greater detail with him and sharing the information he has compared to the information that I have received here in India. I think it is important that the infiltration come to an end so that we can create conditions that will allow dialogue, will allow both sides to gain confidence in one another again, that will create conditions that will permit a peaceful, fair, and open election in Kashmir later this year, and then following the Kashmiri elections and the Pakistani parliamentary elections, we will be in a better position to see the kind of sustained dialogue that I think is needed between the two sides to move forward on a variety of issues that are outstanding between the two sides, to include the issue of Kashmir.
Gentleman in the front row over there.
Mr. Secretary, I'm Amit Barua from The Hindu. It appears that the US is very intensively engaged in South Asia, and in deference to India's wishes, you say you are not playing the role of a mediator. But effectively, don't you think in South Asia the US is playing the role of a mediator?
What the US is trying to do is to play the role of a good friend to India, a good friend to Pakistan, a good friend to the other nations of South Asia. I met in my office the other day with the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. When last I was here on my way out, I visited in Nepal. And so the United States has good relations with all of the nations in South Asia, perhaps better than at any time in the last quarter century. And we are anxious to improve those relations, U.S.-Indian relations, U.S.-Pakistani relations, U.S.-Sri Lankan, Bangladeshi, all of those nations. And if we improve those relations and we are seen as a good partner to all those nations, then we are in a position to perhaps from time to time assist nations in resolving differences that they have. Not as an interfering friend, not as a mediator, but somebody whose good offices can be used in order to bring people to the table so that they can talk to one another and deal with the problems that exist between the two of them. So I see that as the role of a friend whose good offices are used to help people get into a room and begin discussion and move away from conflict, but not as a mediator or somebody who is interfering in someone else's internal or external affairs. Those discussions, of course, are still going on. I met with my new colleague, Minister Sinha, last evening, and I have 3 meetings this morning, so I think I'll wait until I have concluded all of those meetings and had a full exchange before commenting publicly on what I might have discussed with them.
Gentleman in the second row.
Jatin Singh from ANI. Secretary, are you in favor of the Hurriyat parties taking part in the Kashmir elections?
I think that the election should be as open as possible, and groups that have demonstrated responsible action and wish to participate in a free and open democratic process should be allowed to do so.
Okay, Reuters here.
Mr. Secretary, I understand a Palestinian delegation is coming to Washington shortly after your return. Can you confirm that you'll be meeting them, what you'll be discussing, and does this mean that the Palestinian Authority has in some way been rehabilitated in the eyes of the United States?
I do expect to meet with a Palestinian delegation upon my return. Last week I met with an Israeli delegation, and this is part of our process of moving forward to help the Palestinian community transform itself. Education issues, we largest democracies in the world, the United States and India, should be doing much more with each other to increase the level of trade between the two nations. As large as India is and as large as America is with its large economy. And the reason I want to focus on these issues is that very often people look at U.S.-Indian relations only through the prism of what's going on the line of control. That's important, and we will watch that, and we will work with both sides on reducing tension and conflict across the line of control. But we have to keep in perspective the broader relationship, and that's why I wanted to focus on that and touch on what the Prime Minister and the President committed themselves to last year, and all of the areas I touched on and all of the various officials I made mention to was for the purpose of saying to the people of India, we are not just here. I am not just here because there's a crisis in the region. I'm here for the 3rd time in 10 months because India is important to the United States. India plays an important role in South Asia, and the United States understands that, and we want to build on the friendship that exists between our two nations, transform it into a deeper relationship. And we also want to do the same thing with Pakistan. And we want to do it in a way that both nations will see that the United States can be friends to both. It is not a zero-sum game. And every time somebody sees we're doing something that looks like it benefits Pakistan, it is not necessarily at the expense of India. In fact, it won't be at the expense of India. We can move forward with both nations, enhancing our relationship and improving life for all of the countries, the United States, Pakistan, and India, and do it in a way that shows that the United States is here as a friend and a partner. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
People could come on an individual basis, that those who are in Delhi can visit Jammu and Kashmir during the elections. We have a very independent election commission. We have a very proud record of elections in this country. And I can assure you that with all this in place, Jammu and Kashmir elections will be free and fair.
Thank you very much. May I take this opportunity to express on behalf of the American people condolences to the family of late Vice President and Speaker of India. Thank you.
यार थोड़ा आदत, हाथ नीचे रखने का आदत डालो। ऐसा अगली बार तो माइक नहीं